Hello, I'm Dr. Jigar Bajja, an occupational therapist. So this is part two and the final part of this meniscal injury of the knee. So in the previous lecture of this, that is part one, we have discussed about the anatomical features of the meniscal injury of the meniscus, also the semilunar cartilage injuries. So we discussed about the anatomy of two meniscus, in which we have also discussed regarding the medial and lateral meniscus, their features, their shapes, their anterior horn, posterior horn, outer aspect, mobility, and we discussed majorly about the meniscal injury, medial meniscal injury, in their Smiley's classification. Basically, in the classification, we have different types of meniscal injuries. That is longitudinal tear, radial tear, horizontal tear, bucket handle tear, paradic tear, and segmental tear. So this all we discuss. Also we have discussed the classification, I mean the clinical features as well. In that today I'll be discussing certain signs locking positive, McMurray test positive, Apley's grinding test positive, Pyrie squat test positive, Duck Weddell test positive, Steinmetz sign positive, Alfred sign positive, quadriceps atrophy positive, as well as medial joint line tenderness positive. So these are certain tests which we'll discuss, but I may not discuss everything. Yes, but we'll talk about McMurray's test positive in today's lecture. Before that, I'll be talking here with certain uh, 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 investigation methods and also the meniscal injuries occurring in the in children as well as in the adulthood. So here I discussed the meniscus tear in young people. So actually I'm referring an article, so I'll just discuss that. So there are certain injuries and incidents which occur this type of things in young people as well as in the age group of you can say older, that is older people or even in children. So so in this case, so in young patients, the sports related injuries like football, basketball, soccer, baseball, or skiing in particular. So these injuries are most common cause of meniscal lesions in these sports basically. So the thing is accounting for more than one third of the all cases. There are certain underlying mechanisms of these injuries usually involves cutting or twisting of movement, because you understand the anatomy of this, and you here see there are certain anatomical tests, so which represents how the information is taken out. So uh, so this occurs because of most of the twisting force is acting on it, twisting movements, hyperextension, or actions of great force. So, if it's a meniscal tear during these sports, is accompanied by anterior cruciate ligament tearing more than 80% of the cases. And most patients, if say they report an acute onset of sharp pain following a twisting injury with knee flexed and the foot planted on the ground. Okay, I'll repeat again. So most patients report an acute onset of the sharp pain following the knee flexion and foot placed on the ground. So meniscal tears resulting from vehicle accidents are also associated with increased incidence of meniscal lesions in this kind of particular age. So there are certain classification of meniscal injuries also dependent on the location, thickness, and resulting stability. So thus, if you say that the tears in the peripheral vascularized portion are denoted as a red tears, or in the middle third portion are red white or white tears, and in the inner vascular portion as white tears. So this I have mentioned before also in the lectures. So if we see that according to the depth of the tear, injuries are observed as partial or full thickness, of which full thickness injuries can be further recognized as stable or unstable. Another means of classifying meniscal injuries is based on tear pattern. So this way one can distinguish between the different types of meniscal tears. So the most important being that is the vertical, longitudinal, including bucket and flat oblique, that is transverse, radial or transverse, and horizontal or complex, including degenerative. So the things which I categorize now is highly relevant when dividing upon the most appropriate and effective therapy. So there are certain studies which have shown that there is also a significant difference in tear pattern between stable knees and those with concurrent ACL lesions. So there are certain diagnosing meniscal malfunction is greatly dependent upon the upon both the experience and insight of physician. So a detailed patient history and a thorough physical exam and modern imaging techniques can help guide the process towards teaching diagnostic consensus, and starting from the patient's history and accurate description of the injuries acquisition can set the ground for suspected meniscal tear. So the patient complains about concerning pain, swelling or locking. Okay, pain, swelling or locking. If there is pain, there is injury, inflammation will be there. So swelling you will get it. So pain will be accompanied with that. So also two things are very much related. Then one more thing which you have to remember extra is locking. And diagnostic characteristics during physical examination, that is joint fusion, joint line tenderness, should be taken under serious considerations. So the main tests which will need to be conducted each time a patient's knee presents with any of the mentioned findings which I mentioned before are joint line palpation, the flexion McMurray test which I'll be talking further, the Apley's grind test, and the Thalassie test. So the imaging modalities also which are used that need to be held applied when the diagnostic injuries are through the X-ray or MRI. So that can be helpful. So there are certain peripheral meniscal tears. Numerous techniques have been described and applied regarding surgical meniscal repair in the peripheral vascular zone. So those such techniques undergo continuous development, surgical treatment approaches, and we can be classified under we can say four categories actually. So that is inside out, outside in, and all insides, arthroscopic techniques, and open repair. So these are different techniques that are used by the orthopedic surgeons in the treatment of the meniscal injury of the knee. So these techniques have been extensively described in the literature, in the further literature of certain articles on the meniscal injuries, along with their accompanying complications and appropriate rehabilitation programs, and will therefore not be largely uh, uh, is controversial at the point in this thing. So it is much more representative in certain articles. Further, if you say there is substantial amount of research which has focused on the efficacy and reliability of these repairs. So techniques for achieving anatomical and functional restoration of meniscus. So in general, there is an ever increasing amount of literature supporting current meniscus repair techniques for for treating tears in the vascular zone. So functionally successful outcomes in young adults individuals with stable knees are fairly frequent, with success rates of varying from 63 to 98%. However, if you say that more long-term follow-up studies need to be conducted so as to robustly confirm such evidence and exclude the possibility of long-term deteriorations of the articular cartilage and meniscus. So further, there is avascular zone meniscal tear also. So here the tears in the avascular zone of the meniscus are generally more complex and broad, and are often associated with a poor prognosis about following the repair. So improving the healing process in this type of injury is an ongoing challenge of clinicians and researchers. So several different therapeutic approaches have been brought forward with a variety of reported results. So in the many clinical studies and all. So thus most notable, if you say that the parameniscal synovial tissue tramfination of the peripheral meniscus rim with suture of the meniscal tear, creation of the vascular access channels, and use of the mesenchymal stem cells for growth. This is also further studies done on that basis for the recovery phases. Now we'll discuss about the now we'll discuss the meniscal tear in older people and children. So in general, if we say that the meniscal lesions occur frequently in middle-aged and elderly patients, so tears encountered in the patients belonging to this age group usually results from long-term degeneration such as meniscal lesions led to joint swelling, joint line pain, and mechanical blocking. So there are certain prevalence of the meniscal lesions in the patients with clinical and radiographic findings of osteoarthritis. If you say there is 60 to 90%. So also there are certain group of individuals which have this kind of problem, and also in certain studies they have found that there is a high correlation creates a series of diagnostic problems mainly concerning the identification of the main pathology in a symptomatic knee. Therefore, on some occasions, the symptoms may be due to the pathological cause, such as osteoarthritis, or may be attributed to the physicians to the presence of the meniscal tear in MRI. So, while on the other occasions, symptoms which may result from trauma, such as meniscal tear, may be attributed to osteoarthritis. So, if you say that this has obvious repercussions on the choice of a proper therapy. Say, for example, there is a treatment of meniscal tear with a partial meniscectomy, which is rather unlikely to reduce symptoms caused by osteoarthritis. So that treatment is of no use when there is osteoarthritic pain related to it. So that's why it is very important, vital to understand the part of treatment which is being used to be decided in this case of meniscal injuries. Regarding the successful application of the meniscus repairs in the older people, less promising findings also is being found in the younger age patients. It is understood, it is mentioned that the main reason behind this such unfavorable results in the degenerative etiology surrounding meniscal tears in the in that patient group may be different as the reparable meniscal tears in the special age group people. So in general, if we say that the current preferred injury treatment which is being performed by the doctors and the surgeons are uh, meniscectomy, either partial or total, depending on the degree of the meniscal damage. So that's why an increased incidence of meniscal tearing has been recently, we can say, it is observed in this skeletally immature children. The main causative factor behind that kind of increased incidence is growing participation of children in highly demanding athletic activities. Simultaneously, the expansion in the health services focused on children pathology and the extensive use of the highly specialized imaging techniques such as MRI have aided in the contribution or contributing to this kind of diagnosis. So meniscal lesions in children are different than in adult. So if you say in children, the vast majority of the cases, more than 71%, are isolated meniscal lesions. The main mechanism of the meniscal tearing in the children is sports-related twisting of the knee. In small percentage, there are certain cases which common predisposing factors like discoid meniscus. So diagnosis is dependent upon the presence of complete medical history for the patient and the clinical examination. So if a meniscal tear is suspected following clinical examination, the application of an imaging technique should be pursued. So nonetheless, the sensitivity and specificity of MRI for diagnosing meniscal lesions in children is considerably less than that of adults. Also, the meniscal pathology in children has received fairly limited attention in certain literatures with regards of the repair. So most of the studies, if you say, deal with the patients group comprise most of adults, with children representing a small portion of the cases and with fairly short follow-ups. So in children, most of the studies will report in that of the all over success rate of the meniscal repair in children appears analogous to that observed in adults, especially for the cases of the isolated tears. So there are certain factors. These are the certain factors which are responsible for the occurrence of the injuries in the different age group, and as well as in this portion of the area. Also, the if you say that there are certain radiograph which is usually normal in investigations, the views recommended are anterior, posterior, lateral, intercondyle notch, and sunrise views of the patella. The arthroscopy helps to identify the torn meniscus also. Also, the arthrography may reveal the tear. Double contrast arthrography is 95% accurate though, and MRI is is expensive though, but useful, very useful to diagnostic form. The differential diagnosis in this form, in this case, that is fracture of the tibial spine, if present, may give a clue to the possible ACL tear. It also helps to exclude osteochondritis uh, dissecans and osteocartilaginous loose bodies, and further. Now, further, we'll discuss about the meniscal injuries. But just I'll just give you a quick facts that about the you can say medial meniscal injuries. So the medial joint line tenderness is positive, uh, is very much positive, and much of reveal further Apple's grinding test, painful hyperextension, statement first test, sign, and McMurray's. It all are different things and diagnostic tests which are used in the to know the pain and the diagnosis of the meniscal injury. So now, as I mentioned, that we'll be discussing little diagnostics of test of meniscal injuries. So here, if you see that before going to it, I'll just like to discuss little treatment options of this. That there is in the conservative management, so that is indicated in patients soon after the injury, with no locking and with infrequent attacks of pain, and in tears less than 10 mm, partial thickness tear. Okay, so conservative management is indicated for the patient who have means soon after the injury, but with no locks, but they have pain attacks, infrequent, and with the tears less than 10 mm, partial thickness tears. So the measures basically, that is abstinence from weight bearing, rest, ice packs, compression bandage, buck skin traction, joint aspirations, quadriceps exercises. If symptoms persist, a cylindrical cast may be considered. These are the certain measures which are being taken care, and manipulation under anesthesia. So if joint is locked due to the torn menisci, manipulation under anesthesia is recommended. Again, surgical indications, if you see that surgery is indicated if joint cannot be unlocked and if symptoms are recurrent. So in that forms, this kind of surgeries are being performed. Also, I like to talk that the methods which are used here are the arthroscopic menisci repair. So this is the treatment of choice of late. So the repair is indicated if the tear is more than 10 mm or if is unstable on probing. So the repair again is successful in the outer third, that is red zone, and edge of the vascular rim, that is red white zone, and even if the few vascular zone, that is white zone. Okay, so that is being shown here. So if we see that this repair is being shown in this image on the right side, if you see further, there is close partial uh, meniscectomy, which is why arthroscopy is better than the total removal of the menisci by open surgery. So that you can see here that the Smiley's meniscus knife used for meniscectomy, and there is meniscal transplant. So in such cases, the with a total so in the cases of with total meniscectomies, cadaver menisci transplant may be considered. So however, this is still in the evolving stage. So the complete removal of menisci in capacitates the knee hence the emphasis is on the conservative surgery than the radial removal. Also, there are certain facts about the meniscal injuries that nothing is normal meniscus basically. I like to say that if minor lesions and asymptomatic better, uh, uh, if uh, if it is asymptomatic, it's good to leave it in that form. Also, partial meniscectomy is better than total, and resuturing in appropriate location is very important. And earlier it was said that when in doubt remove the, now the concept is when in doubt and observe to do, not treat. Okay, so this is all the treatment options which are being observed in the meniscus. As in our point, we should be very thorough with their form, because the thing is, these kind of meniscal injuries will pose a lots of problem in the ambulation of the individuals and their normal functioning. So that should be totally taken care. So now we'll discuss the test here, that is for this joint line tenderness. So here you see there is a medial joint line tenderness is an important clinical sign in detecting the medial meniscus injury. It is positive in 74% of the cases. Yes, you can see in the image over here on the first image on the left, and on the right side the doctor examining the knee, that is McMurray's test. So here the force flexion and internal rotation are shown here. Force flexion and internal rotation are shown as shown in one, and external rotation as shown in two. So it's done to test the lateral meniscus and the medial meniscus respectively. A positive McMurray test requires both knee and cluck to be felt by examiner's finger on the medial side. Okay, so his finger is on the medial side of the knee. So that is more of a rotation, basically axial of the knee, and the external and internal rotation to know the medial and lateral meniscus. Then duck waddle test. So the patient assumes a squatting position with heels touching the buttock and is asked to perform a duck walk. So the patient will be unable to assume full squatting position in medial meniscus injury. So this is called as Childress sign and is a diagnostic test for posterior horn tear of the medial meniscus. Posterior horn, okay, of the medial meniscus. And then you have Apley's compression test. So in this, basically, the patient is prone, fixing the thigh against the table. The examiner presses the foot and leg downward while rotating the tibia. That is called the grinding test. So pain noted during the axial compression implies a meniscal lesion. Further, you have Steinman's test, Steinman's sign basically. So in this, there is meniscal pathology may be suspected if medial pain is elicited on the lateral rotation, that is medial meniscal injury, and lateral pain on the medial tibial rotation, that is called lateral meniscus injury. Okay, so if you want to check the medial meniscus injury, you have to rotate on the lateral side. If you want to check the lateral meniscus injury, you have to rotate on the medial side. Then the other image you see, that is Apley's distraction test. It's the image number 6 here. So in this, that person is pressing the ankle at the point, that image. So the technique is the same as the above, but here the examiner pulls the foot and leg upward to distract the joint while again rotating the tibia. So the pain noted during axial distraction of joint implies a ligamentous lesion. Okay. So and then you have Helfert's test. Helfert's test. So in this, the in normal knee in sitting position, uh, uh, tubercle lies in the line with midline of the patella. When extended, lateral tibial rotation puts it in line and with lateral border of the patella. So the positive sign occurs when the rotation is blocked by a torn meniscus and the tibial remains and the tubercle remains centered over the patella in extension. Okay, so these are certain tests which are being performed at the initial stages and for the individuals of the knee injury. So that's all for the meniscal injury. And you can refer certain books like textbooks of orthopedic by John Ebenezer. So most of the lectures of this meniscal injury are taken from it only, and that will guide you in further extent.